Hello, friends. Welcome. I'm seeing all people saying hello. This is the History News Live. It's good to see so many of you. I'm going to just start with the hellos. Hello, Liz. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Scarlett, good evening. Yvonne, hello. Thank you for joining. And hi, MJ. Lovely to see you in. Oh, Santa Cruz. Thank you for joining. Hi, Shane. Yes, we're all doing well. Hope allegedly it's going to rain pretty heavily on Sunday, but there are some fun events that are on in various places. So I think over some of the Easter holidays, we're going to go and check those out. I mean, for anybody who is in possession of a small human or has access to one, there is you've probably seen this already. There is at Kew Gardens, there is a Bluey event. So obviously, we're very excited about that. So Gabriel will be having a lovely time. Hi, Rebecca. Oh, it's Tuesday already. Welcome from the future. I hope you bring tidings of good news and great joy, and nothing scary happens overnight. Hello, Lala. Oh, welcome from California. And hello, Steve. Manda's in from Chile. Lovely to see you all. Hello, Kieran. Thank you so much for joining. So, as we Penny going to Kew tomorrow. Well, I hope you have fun, whether you're going there for the Bluey or for the lovely plants. I hope you have a lovely time either way. Liz, no fun historic background today because I haven't been sent one in portrait. People have sent, no, I'm on the other one, haven't been sent one in landscape. People have sent me some really cool portrait images, but it needs to be in landscapes. If people have been places and they'd like me to use it as a background, then please do. But if you can make it that direction rather than that direction, just so I can get the most of it, that would be amazing. Thank you very much. Rebecca has let us know that so far, all through Monday night into Tuesday, it is looking okay so far. Thank you for the update, Rebecca. It's good to know that from the future, there's nothing bad's happened yet. Good. So we have got, I want to say, first of all, thank you all of you for joining the live. If you are watching on the playback, thank you so much for taking the time. We do have today updates, repatriation and decolonisation news. We've got new news. We've got ding dong, and we've also got some events and exhibition news. Unfortunately, the opera pinboard was still not playing ball. In fact, it wouldn't even open for me to start one. So you will notice in the description box, there is no opera pinboard link. I'm hoping it's going to get back on track, but so far not. What we do have is, as per usual, the articles are listed and numbered in the description box. The numbers you will see, they do relate to the numbers on the bottom of the slides that are going to be in a slideshow on screen shortly. Thank you so much to everybody who has sent me articles. As you know, I'm incredibly grateful. Whenever I see that, it just makes me really chuffed that out in your day-to-day lives, something comes across your news app or whatever else, and not only does it connect you and make you think of me, you also take the time to send it over. So I really appreciate that. I have seen lots of articles coming in today. They obviously haven't made it into the slideshow. I was at the Tower teaching today, so they will be in next time. That is, of course, if they haven't already been mentioned in the one we're going to talk about tonight. We have slightly less slides because a lot of people sent me the same news articles, which I think is a really good sign, because I think it means that these are more people are interested in the ones we're going to be talking about tonight. So this shows to me that there's a collective interest in these stories. So without further ado, let me... Yvonne, will I use backgrounds from other countries beside the UK? Absolutely, I will. You may have to tell me where they are and what they are, that would be very helpful, because I don't know where everything is in the world. And my geography is pretty shocking. So make sure it's clear where it is. That would be super helpful. Jennifer, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I get to go to the tower to teach, and we do have a classroom, and for the most part, it's still students. They're usually lovely, but you know, you're still working with young people, so it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But I have to say, whether it's the Tower or Hampton Court, what an immense privilege it is to have that as my office. It is a good old time. Oh yes, collect tortoise. It is still a green screen. I am currently sat in my kitchen, principally because my son doesn't go to bed at the same time as he used to. He's got older now, so my office is next to his bedroom, and we're just fighting to get him to sleep. So that's why I'm down here, because otherwise there would be no chance of having quiet. Firstly, because he can now escape his bed and room, so he'll be coming to visit. So we have decided the best thing is, at least for now, for me to green screen it in the kitchen so that everybody gets the sleep they desire and need. Okay, let me first of all hop in and start with my thank yous. These are to people who have sent me news items. I want to say thank you to my name twin, Kat. I want you to say thank you to Elaine, to Beth, Yvonne, to Rebecca, to Kate, to Elverta, Shane, to Jennifer, Jessie, Steve, Sarah, Karin, Felem, Amy, Pandora Snudpuckle, and Joseph. Thank you so much for taking the time to send all of this stuff over. I'm incredibly grateful. Steve, I think I saw your email come in about the King John and the hunt for his regalia. That your email came in after I had finished this slideshow, so it will be in next time's news. Okay, so let's start with the updates. This is an update on the individuals who glued themselves to Vermeer's girl with a pearl earring. A Dutch court has decided that the climate activists who were given a 2-month jail sentence now no longer need to serve that sentence. The court said apparently that additional prison time would be, quote, excessive, having spent 23 days in the holding cells leading up to the trial in the first place. The court said that a more severe punishment might have a, quote, chilling effect, and they wanted to ensure that those who want to peacefully protest and exercise their right to freedom of expression aren't discouraged from doing so. This gluing to the Vermeer happened in October 2022, happened at The Hague. One man apparently glued his bald head to the painting. This painting is, of course, covered with protective glass. As something that I have noticed with all of these is, I think a lot of paintings are, of course, behind protective glass. I haven't heard of yet, and hopefully it doesn't happen, activists defacing, attacking, or anything else paintings that are not behind protective glass. So I wonder if that is because there are objects and items that are not behind protective glass that are of significant national importance. I'm not going to name them, obviously, but they would be a choice if people wanted to do real damage to the artifacts rather than just make a statement that could be fairly easily cleaned off. Make of that what you will. So this was a Just Stop Oil protest. The museum said that the painting had not been damaged. However, there was apparently some damage to the picture's 19th century frame. This article does point out that attacking works of art has been a method for attracting attention for political reasons, and it has been for years. Of course, it's something that famously the suffragettes did on multiple occasions, not just works of art. The suffragettes came into the Tower of London and they attempted to attack the crown jewels. Leonora Cohen attempted to try and smash the crown jewels through the protective cage they were in. There is a well-worn time-honored tradition of doing this thing as part of political protest. So it is, I don't know really how to comment upon this, but this is the decision of the Dutch courts. See, yeah, this is, I may feel differently if they do irreversible damage to a piece of art or an artifact. But, and I could be wrong, maybe it's just by chance that they don't even know, they don't even care. But I feel like it's not by chance that the pieces they are selecting are beneath protective glass. And what it does is it draws attention to what many people would say is a very important issue. Because if we are concerned about protecting our artifacts and museums, it's going to be a lot harder to do so. A bit of super glue is going to pale into insignificance if they're under 5 feet of water. So yes, Wheezy, they certainly did damage the frame. I don't know if the damage to the frame is irreversible. I also don't know if it was thought out or intentional. I suppose we will see how things progress. Ideally, though, there will be a concerted effort to move forward in ways that are arguably more protective of our planet. So these kinds of activisms will be less necessary, shall we say. We got an update on this unwrapping of the jumper. So also, first and foremost, we've got this close-up image of the jumper. It is fabulous. We are told it's described as hand-knitted in brightly coloured fine wool. We knew it was intended for a woman in Denmark. What we also know is that in the same shipment now, this is on the picture that have gone alongside it, a pair of these in incredible condition, just like the jumper, fine knee-length woolen stockings, and also as well fabric samples. So this shipwreck, for those who weren't here last time, it is about a British attack on the Danish capital, targeting the fleet during the Napoleonic Wars. So this is why this ship went down. And this is now in the National Archives. It has just been unpacked. We're told that the export of men's stockings was a key part of the Faroe Islands export market at a time when, quote, wool was gold for the island communities. This also, interestingly, the jumper, we know who it's addressed to, a Mr. P. Ladson. The contents are described by the sender as a, quote, sweater for sleeping. So some kind of bed jacket, perhaps. Interesting. I'll be honest, I've not considered sleeping in a knitted woolen sweater. However, I have central heating, so maybe that's why I've not considered it. But yes, a sweater for sleeping. Interesting. That would be cool. It would be amazing, and I'm sure that somebody will be thinking about it, doing so. That would be very, very interesting. Julesy. So as well, there are men's stockings, but these ones that are being shown are women's stockings. So they are described as being knee-length stockings. They probably do have some stretch to them, and I presume they would be, like most of the stockings of this period, they would be attached over the knee with some kind of garter. We have an update of the warship that sank off the coast of Florida in 1742. The remains that have been found have been identified as the British warship, the HMS Tiger. The site of this sinking was discovered in 1993. The ship is 130 feet, and it was apparently doing its business from about 1647, patrolling the waters off the coast of Florida. Apparently, the HMS Tiger struck Coral Reef on January the 13th, 1742. The crew dumped cannons and anchors overboard. They shifted cargo as in an attempt to get the boat to be seaworthy once again. However, the ship, we are told, continued to lilt. It sank, it took on water, and thus it dropped to the bottom of the ocean. The 280 odd men who were on board were ordered by the captain to abandon the ship with him. So I'm not quite sure what the loss of life was, if any. But it's very interesting that we have now determined what this ship is. The park manager at Tortugas National Park said the following, quote, "Connecting these finds to the historical record helps us tell the stories of the people that came before us and the events they experienced. This particular story is one of perseverance and survival." The HMS Tiger survivor, we're told, were marooned for 66 days on Garden Key. There, they built the first fortifications. This is about a century before Fort Jefferson was built on the same site. They plundered the warship for materials and then burnt the remaining wreckage of the Tiger so it couldn't be salvaged by their enemies. With the saved material, they built makeshift vessels and also made a 55-day trek through enemy waters to the British-controlled Port Royal in Jamaica. So quite the story there connected to that ship. That is my last update. We are going to hop in to the repatriations and decolonization news. I'll be honest, this is the first I'm hearing of this particular controversy. I have not seen, maybe I have seen this mural. I have been to the Tate, but if I did see it, I believe it was in the restaurant. And it says here it was a fine restaurant, which probably means an expensive restaurant. So that essentially means when I went to the Tate, I almost certainly didn't see this mural because I'm not going to fine dining in museums because I'm cheap. So it's entirely possible that I've never seen this mural in my life. So the Tate Britain has now unveiled a new work that is seeking to contextualize a mural from 1927. This mural had been sealed off from the public since 2020 because of the racist imagery contained within it. Now, as I said, I haven't seen this, and from the photograph I can see it's quite blurred, so I have no idea what this actually looks like. However, this painting by Rex Whistler, in this article, we are told, includes depictions of enslaved Black people on a leash, as well as caricatured images of Chinese people, Chinese figures. The Tate has created an immersive film where apparently an academic is challenging Rex Whistler about his mural as a way of exploring the social and political context of 1920s Britain. It's a 20-minute video piece that considers apparently the time and place in which Whistler was working, talking about his social circle and their consumption of Black jazz music. There's also archival footage of Black soldiers from the First World War and the, quote, Races in Residence Pavilion at the 1924 British Empire exhibition. In that exhibition, there were apparently around 300 people from colonized countries who were made to live in the exhibition grounds, provide demonstrations of native crafts in a way that sounds very much like a human zoo. The artist who is responsible, Keith Piper, wanted to interrogate this mural. He says, quote, "As a teacher, I speak to young artists all the time, questioning them about their practice. I want to give a sense of how and why the mural exists." when speaking to The Guardian, he defended the Tate's decision to keep the mural rather than removing it. He said, I know there's an argument among young people now that these images re-traumatize, but I think we either look or forget. We're very good at forgetting nowadays, and things that are out of sight go out of mind. To keep a clear sense of history, we need to see these things. So the mural is called The Expedition in Pursuit of Rare Meat. In 2020, the Tate Ethics Committee said they were, quote, unequivocal in their view that the imagery of the work is offensive. And so the room was shuttered during the pandemic and has not reopened since. In 2022, it was announced that this installation was going to be commissioned. The thought being that the work should not be altered or removed, but they said it was obviously there's an uncomfortable juxtaposition of this mural and an eating space. So there is a desire to reframe the way this space is being experienced. There is, of course, going to be controversy and question over this. Zarina Mohammed and Gabrielle de la Puente, who are an art criticism duo called The White Pube, told the BBC, quote, the mural does not need to be kept to be remembered. The mural certainly does not need to be continuously restored with millions of pounds worth of funding in order for us to discuss the problems within the imagery. We can still talk about the horrible things it stands for, even after it is destroyed. And destruction isn't an end point, so it should go. Tate should stop defending it. However, Tate Britain's director, Alec Farquhar, said in 2022 that the mural had unique challenges. He said, quote, the mural is part of our institutional and cultural history. We must take responsibility for it. This new approach will also enable us to reflect the values and commitments we hold today and to bring new voices and ideas to the fore. I think this is a really interesting discussion and debate. I hope it is one that continues. I hope that these talking points, these explorations, these interrogations, if you will, and these interventions are tested and tried, because we are nowhere near having a definite answer as to how imagery like this, statues, names of colleges, lecture theatres, etc., that street names, we don't have a firm answer into how to approach them. It's being dealt with on a case-by-case basis, and maybe that is the correct call to deal with it on a case-by-case basis. But I think that projects like this, whether they end up being the end result or whether there will in later times be a decision to fully remove or obscure, I think that the test ground and the conversation is very important to have and to keep having. The next bit of repatriation. A family has found a centuries-old Okinawan collection of art that was stolen during World War II in their attic. How big is your attic? This is in a Massachusetts home. I don't know how big Massachusetts homes tend to be, because tucked away in an attic in a Massachusetts home was not one, not two, apparently, but 22 pieces of stolen Japanese antiques. There was a hand-drawn map, ceramics, portraits of Okinawan kings, some dating as far back as the 1700s. Now, some of these might be small pieces. Some of them are not. So, when they were found, this was the residence of a World War II veteran. His children sorting through his belongings, and they found this. So, they alerted the authorities. The FBI has announced that these artifacts have now made their way to Japan, and the family wish to remain anonymous. In the returned artifacts include, we're told, 6 portraits, a hand-drawn map of Okinawa, several ceramic pieces, dating to the 18th and 19th centuries. Japan is planning to hold a formal repatriation ceremony for these artifacts on Friday. And these, from the pieces we're being shown here, this bowl, for example, and the artworks that we can see the map of Okinawa as well. They are just absolutely stunning. So the family did some research on the pieces they were finding, and in doing so, they discovered that some of these pieces had been entered into the FBI's record, the National Stolen Art File, about 20 years ago. So this is the National Stolen Art File is a searchable database that helps the public and law enforcement determine if an item is ever registered as stolen. 1945, during the Battle of Okinawa in World War II, a whole trove of documents and treasures were taken. And then it was in 2001 that Japanese officials registered the missing items with the US National Stolen Art File. Among them is, of course, these pieces that have now made their way back home. So apparently there might be some large attics. I think equally as well, it sounds like it's the children of a World War II vet that found them. So presumably it was him or someone he knew that did the original looting. And what's odd is, to me, that maybe they had seen them, but at some point these things were then packed up and hidden away in the attic. So it's not like they were displayed or enjoyed. They were almost, maybe I'm reading into it too much. They were a shameful secret to be discovered after a person's death. And one has to wonder, what was the point of taking them in the first place? The Metropolitan Museum of Art has hired its first provenance researcher, and make of this what you will. I'm perhaps a cynical little cynic. The person they have picked for this is Sotheby's executive Lucian Simmons, which on the one hand is poacher turned gamekeeper. Arguably, I discussed this with Mr. Dr. Cat, and he said, well, you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody in that field that has the level of expertise, but not just that, the connects and contacts to have those conversations about repatriation, about provenance. So not only does he have the knowledge, he's also networked in a way potentially that, for example, that PhD who's been working with the Manhattan's DA's office, who's been talking about how he's not getting proper credit for the work he's providing. My first thought was employ him. My husband points out, well, he may not want to work in that job, firstly. And secondly, he may not have the connections that are deemed necessary to do this. The cynical part of me goes, well, if you wanted to find a way to, shall we say, launder, cleanse the history of some of your pieces, having somebody who has worked in provenance researching for one of the most profitable auction houses on the earth would potentially be very useful. I am, of course, speaking speculatively, and this is all just my opinion, and please don't sue me. The flip side, as my husband rightly, he's the voice of reason, as my husband rightly pointed out, was all eyes are going to be on them, particularly even more so for making this choice. So if they muck around, they're going to find out. Those are the possible arguments. So he is currently the vice chairman and worldwide head of the restitution department, as well as being a senior specialist for the Impressionist and Modern Art department at Sotheby's. He will begin in his new role with the Met in May. We know that the Met has faced a lot of scrutiny over the provenance of its 1.5 million holdings. The Manhattan DA's office, as we know, has been very interested in some of their shenanigans. The director of the museum and its chief executive, speaking about the new appointment, said he has a vast amount of experience and understanding. He has a vast amount of experience, understand the level of research you need to apply and what timelines you need to get a result. He probably had to deal with more issues at Sotheby's than have many other institutions. You have to vet and scrutinize a huge number of objects. He's someone who understands the theory, but he also has a very practical attitude. He has been working on restitution and provenance issues at Sotheby's since 1997. He started a dedicated team for these kinds of concerns. He is going to be leading a team of researchers. He will work with curators at the Met to confirm the provenance on all of the objects. With that being said, Sotheby's has received criticism recently for trying to sell objects with questionable provenance. We've talked about that in the past, particularly things that seem to be connected to the looting by the Nazis. So this team is going to be expanding. It's going to be going from 6 to 11 under his guidance and leadership. We will see what goes on. I think I've given a balanced, by parroting my husband, I think I've given a fairly balanced idea of both sides of it. I am a naturally suspicious individual who's always going, yes, but what's the end game here? And maybe that's unfair. So we shall see, won't we? On to our new news. Scarlett, if anyone's going to get recognised funky provenance, it's the guy from Sotheby's. I mean, true. Indeed. Collect tortoise. Didn't the Met have this whole thing with the stolen sarcophagus? It's not ringing bells for me, but in fairness, that could be because there's been since I started making the history news, particularly doing the lives, the repatriations and the investigation of the Manhattan DA's office, of the Met and elsewhere, I will be honest, it's all sort of swum into one. There are so many that it's entirely possible there is a sarcophagus issue, but I'll be honest, I can't remember it. But that's mostly because of the sheer glut of stuff that's been pinched. So on to our new news, and we have got some kid archaeologists once again. So we've got our league of fabulous kid finders of things. They have found a fossil from a giant ice age sloth in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Oh, hang on a second. Kim Kardashian stood beside a sarcophagus during the Met Gala and took a photo. Oh, that's now ringing a bell. That is now ringing a bell. There we go. It requires the additional context of a Kardashian for me to go, yep, now I'm with you. Okay. And Anastasia points out that it's the sarcophagus with Kim K and Yvonne. It was also mentioned by John Oliver in his video about museums. John Oliver on the British Museum as the world's largest active crime scene. Spot on, as far as I'm concerned. Yes, Yvonne, about this one. I love the look on the little faces. Look at that little one there in the red top. Just shock and glee. It's glorious. So elementary school students playing in the forest when they found a strange object. They thought it was a bone from a very big animal. This is students from the Tara Redwood School. And they brought the find to the Santa Cruz Museum of Natural History. And it was recognised as a fossilised arm bone thought to belong to an ancient sloth. Indeed, it did. It came from Jefferson's ground sloth. Oh, look how little they are. They've got gappy little teeth. Isn't it cute? Oh, so sweet. They found the bone last spring, and it's an ice age sediment deposit. So it's about 11,500 to as much as 300,000 years old. And these ground sloths were large and now extinct plant-eating mammals. Apparently, at full size, they were about the size of an ox or 3 meters long, weighing in at 2,200 to 2,425 pounds. Big boys. They said, quote, fossils are a great way to engage people with a deep past. We're so excited that young students made this important discovery that will continue to inspire generations. This fossil is going to be put on display in one of the museum's exhibits between March 23rd and 26th, and then it's going to be stored in the museum's collection for research. So you've got until tomorrow to get to Santa Cruz and see the fossil that these little kiddies found. So isn't it cute? Bless them. Not the only child archaeologist, because they're all at it. Here we go. This is a find in Wales. An 11-year-old budding archaeologist has discovered a Mesolithic flint blade at one of Wales's most important sites in North Wales. This is, you can see it's a little, it's small but perfectly formed. And this is a small blade from the Neolithic, or it could even be as far back as the Mesolithic era. Mesolithic finds have been found across North Wales, suggesting a population that followed water routes, particularly along the Dee Valley. The flint that was carried by our Neolithic and Mesolithic ancestors was often in the form of projectile points and scrapers. Flint knives, however, are particularly special as they were used in daily life to cut up meat, other foodstuffs, and also in preparing animal skins for use as leather or as cords. During the Mesolithic age, the climate in Wales gets warmer and wetter, which leads to changes in vegetation. Their diet included fish, wild boar, other animals such as elk, red deer, roe deer, and wild cattle. Flint artifacts are found from time to time across Wales, we are told. However, there are no registered finds from this particular area, the flooded Terwyn Valley floor. We are told, quote, small tools like this are strong indicators of human activity being a consistent feature of the Capel-Shalin area for thousands of years. I'm going to give it a go. I think it is Clyn Is that close? It'll be Clyn Clyn. How close am I? Let me know. If you can spell it phonetically, I'll give it another go. I'll be honest, I could not place most of these things on a map, but that is not a shock because I can't place most things on a map. I know where North Wales is, but my geography is absolutely abysmal. So do let me know how I should have pronounced that. More phlegm. Do you know what? Clyn Kellen. Excellent. This is one of the reasons why Welsh language and indeed the other indigenous languages of these islands should have a greater footprint, because Cymraeg is a language of the island I live on, and unless you are now educated in Wales, we get absolutely no schooling in it. And the same way when it comes to the other Celtic and Gaelic and Gaelic languages, we get no schooling in it whatsoever, and they are indigenous linguistic forms of our islands. We've got face piercings. Earliest direct evidence of body piercings have been discovered in Neolithic graves. So these assortment of artifacts are thought to be lip piercing. These are stud-shaped objects that, as people point out, would not look out of place in the lips of people today, because when it comes to ornamenting one's body with body piercings and other jewelry, there are very few ways really to create that kind of jewelry. It's always, in a certain extent, going to look the same. So we're told, quote, these artifacts offer a unique window into the use of body perforation ornaments by the inhabitants of early sedentary communities. This is an archaeologist from a university in Turkey. We are informed, of course, that the archaeological record is, we see lots of pendants, necklaces, and charms, but as fleshy tissues like the skin are so very preserved, it's harder to know if these things sit on top of the skin or in some way beneath it. These finds that have been made, because of the placement in the grave related to the human remains, in addition to wear marks found on the bones, mean that they're pretty sure these were piercings. Other pieces remain lodged in position on the upper or lower surface of the skull and under the jaw. The jawbones of some individuals showed sign of wear on the front side, which happens when a flat back stud called a labret is worn through a piercing beneath the lower lip. So when your parent or caregiver told you, as mine did, that if you get your tongue pierced, it'll ruin the enamel on your teeth, they were perhaps correct. Also, I saw my friend get her tongue pierced, and I was immediately, it's one of those things that when you watch somebody else go first, you just go, do you know what? Not today. Not today. I'll go and have a tattoo. That's what I'll do. I'll go and have a tattoo instead. I was that it looked painful. It's the pinching of the tongue. Nope, no, thank you. If you're brave enough to do it, go for it. We are told the earliest convincing evidence for the use of a labret in Southwest Asia before this latest discovery dates to around 6000 BCE. There are other artifacts that have been found across Southwest Asia that have been inferred to be piercings based on their shape, but they weren't directly associated with the body parts through which they may have been worn. They have so far described 85 objects found in these graves that appear to be ornaments worn in piercings. They are made out of things like limestone, flint, copper, and obsidian, a volcanic glass. The objects were found in the graves of 7 male adults and 9 female adults, either perched on top or close to their skeletons. Interestingly, no children had ear ornaments or labrets near their heads. Instead, they were often buried with pendants and beads. So piercings, they think, is some kind of rite of passage, part of growing up, a mark of social status associated with your age or with your particular role in society. The study that they have that this is listed in has been published in the journal Antiquity. Talking about piercings. Wheezy says that your son wanted to get his tongue pierced, suggests he start with an ear. I mean, that's the gateway piercing, the ear. I'm very pleased that I didn't get my tongue pierced. I don't know why I thought it was going to be a good idea, because my body, I have 2 piercings in my ears, but you will never see me wearing earrings ever, because no matter what, and I've tried them all. I've tried gold, I've tried a pure gold, I've tried silver, I've tried platinum, I have tried titanium. So if I ever need a hip replacement, I am in trouble. I even started using a surgical grade plastic, because I thought it might be the metal. Whatever I put through my skin, immediately my ears kick off. They are bright red, they're seeping, they're weeping. When I was at university, I had my belly button pierced. And that thing never healed. I had a titanium bar put through it. That thing never healed, no matter how careful I was of it. And it got to the point where I could see the bar through my skin because my body was just rejecting it. So I stick with tattoos but then, as you say, Rumpelstiltskin, Snudpuckle. Maybe if I tried limestone, I've tried everything else. Why don't I give obsidian a go? Maybe that would work. Because I think piercings are really cool, and I would love to wear pretty earrings, but I can't. I've got these holes have never healed either. I haven't worn earrings in them for the better part of a decade, and they're still open. Shane, I have tried clip-ons, and clip-ons can be nice, but unfortunately, where the piercings are, the holes are, having them squeezed is where you'd want to put earrings, and I find it quite painful. The site referred to as UK's Pompei we've got some new finds coming out of there. This is the 3,000-year-old village at a place called Must Farm Quarry, which is in Whittlesea in Cambridgeshire. It's a Bronze Age homestead that could have been home to 50 or 60 people. It's being referred to as an amazing time capsule. I don't know why. I'm wondering why my husband's just texted me. I wonder if he's behind on the chat. I'm not going to repeat that because it might get me banned. But it's very odd. Maybe he needs a nap. He's a good egg. So this is referred to as an amazing time capsule. They think that it was about 10 circular wooden houses on stilts that were situated above a river. It was burnt to the ground in about 850 BC. They don't know why it was burnt to the ground. Possibly as an attack. It might have started accidentally as well and quickly spread between these closely plaqued homes. This burn mark has therefore connected it, because of the destruction, to the village of Pompei. So because of this charring and also being waterlogged, they have found thousands of objects, including almost 200 wooden artifacts. They've got more than 150 fibre and textile items, 128 pottery vessels, and some 90 pieces of metalwork. All of these things they have found from this dig are going to be displayed in an exhibition at the Peterborough Museum and Art Gallery. In fact, it's going to go on display next month from the 27th of April. So if you're going to be in Peterborough, I think my husband is responding to how long it took our son to go to bed. He may be looking to engage in. So he was essentially saying that he might have to take some narcotics to get over the stress. He's joking. He's not going to do that. But that's why I was like, what is he talking about? So it's something to do with the live stream. I think it was a stressful bedtime. My son has gone from a few months ago, it was daddy only. Mummy was horrible. Mummy's not his friend. Mummy doesn't like him. He doesn't like mummy. He doesn't want to talk to me. I need to leave. To now we've had a complete 180 reversal in things. And I'm his only friend. I'm his best friend. So he's essentially the thing you want him to do, he's never going to do. So 3 is hard, pals. 3 is hard. It's a good job he's cute, I tell you. Oh boy. So the archaeologist Chris Wakefield has said, quote, "I think people have this perception that everyone was struggling to survive, that it was a horrible, nasty time to be alive, this whole nasty, brutish and short thing. And actually, if they look inside the structures, they can see they've got a very sophisticated level of technology. It does everything they need it to do. They've got axes they created. That's a bit like a multi-tool that you can swap in different axe heads and use it really quickly for different functions. I mean, that sounds like a more violent form of my favorite screwdriver set. I've got some great tools. I love a cool screwdriver set. And they've got pots designed to be stacked inside each other. This is before the potter's wheel is invented, so these are all hand-built pots. The Wakefield describes the project as, quote, one of the most comprehensive investigations into a prehistoric site that's ever been done in the UK. There are new books coming out following the extensive analysis of this site and project that have been published. So we will, as more information comes out, we will check it out. Also, if you can get to Peterborough and have a look at the exhibition, maybe I'll see if I can get up there. It sounds like a good time. Steve, the next history news will be presented by Jamie then. Maybe I'll send him in. He is currently working on a Reading the Past project. He's creating a resource that I could never have created. He's working on it. He's been working on it for ages. And when it's finished, I'm really looking forward to sitting down with him. It's going to be an open access, freely available resource. He's put together the available research on this thing. However, we have discussed it, and there's almost certainly going to be some gaps in knowledge because there are things that we just don't have access to on the ground that other people in this community might know about. So as well as being open access, there is the capacity to edit and essentially open source the information. So hopefully I will be bringing you news of that in the not too distant future. Shane, I would just want to point out that Jamie met me when I was still drinking. So he almost certainly can handle all of us, because he put up with this when it had alcohol in it. No, thank you. He is the calm voice of reason in the absolute lunacy that is my head hole. Brian, you like how Peterborough is pronounced? Well, there are some fabulous English pronunciations. I see, and I know there are some that are really hard for non-Brits to say, like Leicester, Worcestershire, Worcestershire sauce, for example, or as we sometimes just call it, Worcester sauce. That's what we tend to say. Another good one is, it looks like it's spelled Bevoir, but it's actually beaver. So there is, in fact, a beaver castle, which gives me some fun. Yes, Kit of the Weird Woods, as we like to call it jokingly, Luga Baruga. It is, of course, Loughborough, but Luga Baruga sounds fancy, doesn't it? Luga Baruga. Slough and Froome, of course it is. Slough is a if you live in Slough, I apologise. Slough is you have my sympathy. So yes, if there are place names that you need me pronouncing, I'll give it a good old go. Obviously, it's not going to be strong on the Welsh ones. I'll give you that. It's not going to be. Archaeologists have announced that they have found the top half of a giant Ramesses II statue, and thus are able to complete a century-long puzzle. This has been discovered near the ancient city of Hermopolis, which is about 155 miles or 250 kilometers south of Cairo. The piece is about 12.5 feet, that's 3.8 meters tall, depicting Ramesses II, whose reign was around 1279 to 1213 BCE. I've got some more pronunciations here coming in. Yes, this is the Call Me Risley one, allegedly. Also, it looks like it's spelt Lettice Knollies. It's Lettice Knowles, like Beyonce. Andrea. I'm wondering if that's pronounced Cooley. But obviously, US pronunciations. I know British pronunciations of places. But I'm wondering if that's Thule. I'll be honest, I don't know where it is, and I've not heard of it. So we have got. We're told that the lower part of this statue was found in 1930s by a German archaeologist called Gunther Roeder. And when the statue would have been together, lower and upper parts, it would apparently have stood about 23 feet or 7 meters tall. So it's a big boy. In the 19th dynasty, when Ramesses II was ruling, Egypt's a vast empire. It's extending from what is modern day Sudan to Syria, roughly. There were numerous statues of Ramesses II constructed during and after his reign. So there are some at Abu Simbel in southern Egypt. They are apparently about 66 feet or 20 meters tall. Big boy. The excavation that revealed the upper part of the statue was conducted by an Egyptian-American team. This led by Basim Gehad, who is an archaeologist with the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, and also Yvonne Trinka-Amrain, who is an assistant professor of classics at the University of Colorado, Boulder. So, there we go. Coco, thank you. Yes, and that's the other thing, of course, is how you pronounce things depends on where you're from in this country. So I would say Peterborough, but there are people that would say Peterborough. I'm a Peterborough girl. I'm a Loughborough girl. That's where I live. But they are both technically correct. We've got a Roman find. Roman relics have been unearthed during a car park construction. This statue they found is thought to date back 1800 years, and it's really remarkably preserved. Greg Crawley's working at Burley House, which is near Stamford. He's working there in April 2023 when he notices a new face on an item that he thought was just a rock. The bust of this statue would be unearthed a few weeks later, and both are going to go on display at Burley House later this month. It's going to be, so they've reconstructed the statue, put the head back with the torso, and it's going to be on display within the oddly named Hell Staircase at Burley House. I haven't been to Burley House, but now I know there's a Hell Staircase. I do want to go. Mr. Crawley said, I had a real shock as the digger bucket rolled over what I thought was a big stone to reveal a face. When I picked it up, I realised it was the head of a statue. I couldn't believe it when they told me it was a Roman marble statue. And what a find. How cool is that? So the question is how this bust and head became buried. There have been several theories put forward, including it might have been a bungled burglary. But a bungled burglary. It's a place where you go for burgers. A burglary. A conservator has reassembled the statue. It's going to be on display. It's already on display. It was started on display at the 16th of March. This find has also been reported to the British Museum. So there we go. Seeing some really cool pronunciation questions. So, Steve, is this something that was collected on a ground tool, but by whom? Well, they do point out there was an iron dowel found in the marble head that was probably added in the 18th century, allowing the bust to be allowing the head to be put on the bust or perhaps on a pedestal. This is often carried out by Italian antique dealers in the 18th century to make excavated ancient relics more attractive to traveling aristocrats. So yes, on the grand tour, antiques dealer in Italy has flogged this to somebody, presumably the inhabitants of Burghley House at that time. In the 18th century, I have absolutely no idea about how long Burghley House stayed with Burghley and his descendants. I can investigate, and if I get an update, I shall let you know. You say bungled burglary 5 times fast. Bungled burglary, bungled burglary, bungled burglary, bungled burglary. There we go. There we go. I'm ready for my stage debut. Anybody in Michigan? You've got a brewery that's going to be recreating an extinct beer from the findings at an archaeological dig. This is just north of Grand Rapids, Michigan. So for Michiganites, I'm assuming you know what that means. I couldn't say I do myself. The brewery is called Archival Brewing, and they are recreating this beer. They have got 3 amphoras that were purchased when the brewery opened in 2021. 4-inch thick terracotta pots, handmade in Italy. This is one of the oldest known fermentation and shipping vessels for wine and beer, dating all the way back to the Neolithic era. Inside these 800-litre clay vessels, Take It to the Grave, which is a Scottish heather ale, has been fermenting since early February. This recipe, which was thought to be extinct, has been recreated by experts who analysed scrapings from clay vessels that were found during Scottish digs. Today, the Orkney Islands contain some of the oldest and best preserved Neolithic sites in Europe, and they are home to a UNESCO World Heritage Site. I apologise, Sharon, you're not Michiganites, you're Michiganders. Well then, Michiganders, do you know, Sharon, of this brewery? Is it a famous brewery? Do you think you could get there? Do you drink beer? What would you do? You fancy a bit of Scottish heather ale, heather beer? Now then, maybe this is the one time when we can lick the history or drink the history. I wouldn't necessarily do it the historical one, but the reconstructed, I think could work. Maybe a little lick of the reconstructed history, if invited, shall we say. We are told, so the brewery owner, Levi Knoll, said that the amphoras are more commonly used to age wine, and there's only a handful of breweries in the US that are currently using them. Knoll and his partner Steele are hopeful about this process and about the eventual taste of the beer. But we are told they are monitoring it to see, as it's the first time they've used an amphora for aging. If everything goes smoothly, they expect that the seasonal brew will be ready to debut in the spring, which is very soon. In addition to Take It to the Grave, they are also aging a Highland honey mead using heather flower in a 400-litre amphora. Archival Brewing is located, if this is useful to you, at 6266 W River Drive, I think West River Drive, Northeast NE, in Belmont, Michigan. So if you're nearby, Sharon, apparently you said, you don't like beer. Alas, alack. Well then, if anybody's in Michigan or making their way to Michigan and you enjoy a beer, do let us know if this is tasty. I hope it goes well. I'm a fan, I'm a fan of all heritage crafts, and brewing is brewing as a kind of cottage industry, and actually a further to that, an industry, particularly as something that as brewers and tapsters, from the medieval period onwards, it was something that was often performed by women. So I find it really fascinating that and the work that goes into it and seeing the kind of machinery involved. I find it really fascinating. And in the same way that I find people who can still make wattle and daub or the old types of walls that you see in various places, like in Dorset, for example. I find it really fascinating that these heritage crafts still exist. There is something absolutely phenomenal about driving around the Sussex countryside and being there at a time when a thatcher is redoing a roof. It's really fabulous to see the patterns going in. Yeah, I think it's really cool. And so, with that being said, I'm a big fan of people doing things like brewing or recreating smells, all sorts of things like that. Do you know what? I would request a sample. First of all, I don't know how well it would travel from the States, and also when it comes to things like beer, I am once again not the person to do it because I haven't drunk alcohol in well over a decade. I stopped for 6 weeks because my behavior was not good. And then when I went to try drink alcohol again, it just all tastes like paint stripper. To me, it all smells like nail varnish remover, no matter what it is, whether it's wine, spirits, beer. So and it doesn't even matter if it's alcohol free. The smell of it, no, can't do it. But I hope it's nice and that people enjoy it, nevertheless, even if I wouldn't. Somebody's found a thimble. We've got another metal detectorist find. If you needed it to go and get your metal detector, buy one. Of course, following the rules of engagement. Namely, make sure you've got permission to go beep, beep, beeping around. If you find something, great. It probably needs to be reported, if you're in the UK, to the Portable Antiquity Scheme to make sure it's treasure. On top of that, sometimes it's best to leave it in the ground because it might be very useful to see the archaeology it is part of. So those things considered, nevertheless, it sounds like a good time. This has been determined to be officially treasure. This was found a couple of inches beneath the soil. This was found in November 2020 under the shade of an oak tree. It almost sounds like the announcement that Elizabeth's Queen of England. It was found in a field near to Pembrokeshire's 13th century Carew or Carey Castle, depending on how that version of Carew or Carey is pronounced, because they are both used. This is a 300-year-old silver thimble that is now officially been described and termed to be treasure. It dates to between 1682 and 1740, built in 2 pieces. It has 6 transverse bands in a zigzag over the top of a basket weave pattern. Around the base of this posy thimble, engraved in capitalized Roman script, are the words "like still and love ever," meaning like enduringly and love forever. Inscriptions on posy items, particularly rings, they are popular in the 15th and 17th centuries in both Britain and France, are a way of expressing affection and regard between lovers. These thimbles, obviously worn on the finger during needlework, are considered intimate and therefore potentially a romantic possession, suitable as a gift between lovers. This thimble was sent to the National Museum of Cardiff for identification. The finds coordinator for the Portable Antiquity Scheme in Wales, it was then declared as official treasure on March the 13th by the acting senior coroner for Pembrokeshire and Carmarthenshire, who is Paul Bennett. These objects must be offered for sale to a museum before it's retained by the finder. Tenby Museum and Art Gallery, which is 10 miles from where this thimble was found, has put forward its desire to acquire this thimble for its collection. If so, it will hopefully be on display very soon and we can all go and check it out. So that would be lovely, wouldn't it? It is a very fancy thimble. Evidently, A lot of work has gone into it. A lot of affection is evident. I think it's beautiful. A medieval moat, we are told, is of high significance, has been excavated near Tewkesbury. This is the Cowfield farm site that's believed to date back to the 12th or 13th century. They are trying to find the story of this site. They've really picked it apart. The Cowfield farmers were apparently middling rung of peasant society, legally free and holding land as tenants of Tewkesbury Abbey, which is 2 miles away. This moat, so the senior publications officer for the archaeological educational charity said, if you say moat, everybody thinks of a castle with a big moat around it, a defensive ditch. But moats were used way down the social scale by to the wealthier peasants, the movers and shakers of village life. This one was definitely filled with water, with the Christian symbolism of purity and the lady of the house, whose fidelity had to be protected, surrounded by a symbolic virtuous belt of water. In researching this rural site, they are also linking their findings to documentary evidence that already exists. Quote, we know a lot about medieval towns, but rather less about what's been going on in the countryside. So they're interested in how these two interact. By finding a medieval rural site that they can link to the abbey that's right in the middle of Tewkesbury, they're calling that absolutely fantastic. They said at the first glance, you wouldn't think it's all that interesting for archaeologists, but beneath all that, there are layers of time there, stories to be unpicked. So they have got a book clasp that's been dug up. That's a medieval book clasp, thought to belong to a monk who was recording how much the farm had produced in a year. And then at the bottom, they've got artifacts like this shoe that have been analysed and have been archived in the Tewkesbury Museum. The full archive of these finds is to be stored at the Tewkesbury Museum. So hopefully some of it will be going on display for us to check out. Talking about cool medieval finds, we're continuing on. A rare medieval belt loop has been found near Kamień Pomorski, which is, I believe, in Poland. This belt loop was discovered by a metal detectorist. It is 56 millimeters in height. The front panel has an anthropomorphic form showing a figure with diagonal and horizontal cuts visible on the torso. Make of that what you will. Apparently 15 similar belt loops have been discovered in Europe. Collect tortoise. I at first glance thought this was a skull, but what I think it actually is what looks like the nose portion is supposed to be like the V of the body, and what you've got is sort of arms doing that, and then you've got like almost like a armored skirt and then legs. So what you see up at the top, that little nubbin at the top, what looks like on the top of the skull, is actually the head. That's because when I first saw it, I also thought it was a skull, but I think that's actually what looks like the skull part with the teeth is actually the torso leading to some kind of armored skirt. Apparently 15 similar belt loops have been discovered in Europe. One was found in Hungary, one in Austria, and 12 in Germany, most of them in Bavaria. It's thought that this was likely used for hanging keys or a purse. They think it was originally made by a Bavarian craftsman, as I think that's where most have been found, specifically in Nuremberg during the 14th century. This would have been cast by pouring liquid metal into a mold that then cools and solidifies. This solidified part is known as a casting that's then broken out of the mold to complete the process. This belt loop has been donated to the Museum of the History of the Kamieńska land. They have described it as extraordinary. So fabulous, right? This, if you do click on this particular link, so that would be link 17, as by way of a heads up, there are human remains on this. In most cases, if I'm sharing an article about a burial dig or anything and there are no images, 9 times out of 10 there will be human remains photographs on the original website. I will always flag it in case that's not something you want to see, but there certainly were human remains, lots of them, very close up in this article, just to let you know. They have found about 1,000 sets of human remains thought to be individuals who died from the Black Death or the plague in southern Germany. This is thought to be the largest mass grave of its kind in all of Europe. Shane asked about the portrait of Anne of Cleves. We aren't there yet. I will be talking about that so far in a bit. So these Nuremberg excavations, there was going to be some new apartments that were built, and on the site of these new apartments, they found this mass grave. Adults, children, infants, dating from the late 15th century to the early 17th century. So it was a plague pit in use for centuries, seemingly. 3 pits have been fully excavated. There are another 4 that are expected to be examined in the coming weeks. We are told, quote, a discovery like that has never happened before, and quite honestly, no one thought this to be possible. The site is of enormous importance to the city of Nuremberg, and we work together in our attempt to get all the information possible. That is from Melanie Langbein, who is from the city's Department for Heritage Conservation. They point out that in 2 of the mass graves, the deceased were tightly packed with the skeletal remains of adult people basically sitting up, all along the southern end of the pit. Then about 9 more stacked up in, and this is the thing, this description, this is the photograph you see. So this sort of seated thing, which you may not, I found it fairly shocking myself, so you may not want to check that out. In one pit, the number of sets of human remains reached nearly 300. We are told that the human remains are in good shape for examination, that they can detail out all the information that is kept in these bones. So the prevalence of different kinds of cancers, genetic mutations that show in skulls, age and sex determination, status of teeth, and conclusions from that about the general health and life circumstances of this period. It had, previous to this, researchers suggested that people in the Nuremberg region suffered 3 major and several smaller outbreaks of the Black Death between the 16th and 17th centuries, leading to over 5,000 deaths in 1533, about 10,000 in 1563, and nearly 15,000 in 1634. We are told that, as far as we know, this site is the biggest scientifically excavated mass burial in Germany, with the estimated number of bodies possibly the biggest in Europe. So, yeah. Shane, absolutely no need to apologise. It's very important news, and I will be talking about it. You are absolutely within your rights to put it in the chat. It's been all over the social medias, hasn't it? It's been all over. Laurie, I hope the plague doesn't ever break out again. Same. We better keep our eye on that Russian permafrost, because there are things in that that are coming out of that. What was it? There was some amoeba style thing that has been frozen for some bajillion years that thawed and just started reproducing. So another reason perhaps to take care of potential global warming situations, because if the permafrost melts, who knows what's going to come get us. KTB says some of the skeletons' pictures have a greenish blue tint to them. Any idea of the cause of that? I would assume that it's down to the mineral deposits in the soil in which they were buried, possibly connected to where the water table is, various pipes that might run through it. But that would be my guess. So that would be my first assumption. But if I do find out if there's any further news on that, I will, of course, update you. RAI, you've got a question? Well, ask it. And I might answer it. Depends what you ask. Okay, so next up, Piero della Francesco's Augustinian altarpiece has been reassembled after 450 years. There were 8 known components of this artwork, housed in 5 different museums in Europe and the US, that have been reunited in Milan. This is a polyptych. Polyptych. That's probably how that should be said. So 2 is a diptych, polyptych. That sounds wrong, but I'm sure it's right. A polyptych was created in the early Italian Renaissance for the Church of the Augustinians at Borgo San Sepolcro, which is now San Sepolcro. Apparently it's comprised of 30 panels, the majority of which have gone missing. These are the 8 known components of the artwork. There have been several attempts in the past to reunite these known panels. This is the first time it's happened. So this is panels from the Poldi Pizzoli Museum in Milan. They have brought these panels together thanks to loans from the US, UK, and Portugal, all put together, combining their St. Nicholas with the 4 from the Frick collection in New York, and those from the National Gallery in London and the National Gallery in Washington, D.C., and the Museum of Ancient Art in Lisbon. It's been exhibited in the show Piero della Francesca and the Augustinian Polyptych Reunited. RAI. Tewkesbury, as in where the Battle of Tewkesbury went down. The very same. I mean, in a field outside of it. Yes. So that is that very same Tewkesbury. And we are talking about the tardigrades. Melissa, polyptych. Diptych. Polyptych. Thank you very much. So these are big pieces, and we're told they've also produced a video for the public that presents the investigations that they've conducted and provides a deeper understanding of Piero della Francesca's technique and way of working. Using a stereo microscope, they, for example, saw a foot that was not visible to the naked eye in one of the panels, suggesting that it belonged to the Virgin Mary, who was kneeling to receive the crown of Christ. This sounds like a fabulous exhibition. Is anybody going to be in Milan? If so, do check it out and let us know your thoughts. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Ding dong. Look at her. Isn't she gorgeous? Isn't she gorgeous? So if you get a close-up of this, you will actually see that with the cleaning that's happened, sort of coming up from her eyebrows, you can see the detail of her veins, like this sort of just her alabaster skin. That's, you can see the veins like coming out. The level of detail is incredible. This, for the first time in 400 years, this is back to close to its original glory. You can see this incredible blue backdrop. You can see, for the first time, really, the color of her eyes. I mean, everyone's talking about how blue the background is, but actually, if you look at the comparison between the skin, like the skin on her face, her neck, her hands, she is luminous. She's absolutely beautiful. This incredible gem adorned headdress. This portrait is at the Louvre, and it has been cleaned and put on display there. What I'm going to say, and what I've said about Anne of Cleves, this kind of story about Henry taking an instant dislike to her, complaining that he was very disappointed that men had so praised her. She is nothing like what he expected, etc., etc., etc. What is inescapable for me, as a kind of evidence point of Anne of Cleves' appearance, is Holbein, who made this work, continues to be in Henry's household, continues to get commissions from Henry and his courtiers. If this was, as an image, wildly inaccurate, why on earth would Henry not only let him live, not only allow him to remain in England, but also keep paying him? I don't think he would. So, to all intents and purposes, this must be a recognizable likeness of Anne of Cleves. Now, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. There's a lot that can go wrong when you come face to face with somebody. Pheromones, personality clash, whatever it might be. This is not an unattractive woman. Not an unattractive woman. Julesy, you mean Catherine Howard? Look, here's the thing. Catherine Howard is employed to serve Anne of Cleves. That household is created before Anne of Cleves arrives. So Henry has met his wife's ladies, presumably Catherine Howard too, before he meets his wife. Brian, he does complain about her body. He does say that the way her body looks means that she's obviously had children. As Susanna Lipscomb points out, he essentially says that she is smelly, fat, and not a virgin. And I agree with, once again, Susanna Lipscomb, as I often do, that there's one person in that bedroom who's smelly, fat, and not a virgin, for sure, and that is not Anne of Cleves. That is not Anne of Cleves. But yes, this restoration work is absolutely gorgeous. The other thing I think about Anne of Cleves being attractive is that courts are supposed to be full of the best, the brightest, the most beautiful. People who are welcomed at court are supposed to be an ornament to that court. So the fact that Henry welcomes Anne to celebrate Christmas with him and his new wife, Catherine Howard, the fact that he wants to be in her company and presence, the fact that he wants her to be in front of the visiting people, the rest of his court, at least to some degree, he must have recognized her as a potential ornament to his court, I think. A Ming Dynasty tomb has been found in China, and it has lots of beautiful finds in it. So this is archaeologists from the Shaanxi Provincial Institute of Archaeology have found a 400-year-old stone tomb, some 300 miles south of the southwest of the capital, Beijing. This grave spans more than 80 feet, includes 2 burial chambers, niches sealed with a stone tomb gate, and it's also got a set of carved ornamental double doors featuring dragons. On the passageway, it's inscribed with a text that reads, Epitaph of the Prince Ming-Ru Horan. The main chamber has got 2 intricately decorated wooden coffins, which are painted with gold, diamonds, and other colourful floral and bird patterns. They have got, in the niches, they've got porcelain vases that have got grain, oil, and liquids. In a back chamber, they've got wooden furniture, so tables, chairs, altars in various states of repair. They've got candlesticks and lampstands, tin cups and pots, writing tools like inkstones and calligraphy implements. Then they've also found around 60 additional tombs that have been excavated as part of explorations before a nearby highway construction commences. And one of the finds in the Shaanxi province in northern China has unearthed jade artifacts and a lot of precious jewellery, as well as silk garments, pottery, and lacquered wood coffins. And this is one of the rings, and I just think it's absolutely fabulous. Isn't it a beautiful thing? A 400-year-old ship with £4 billion worth of gold is being hunted off the UK coast. This is being referred to as the El Dorado of the seas. Hopefully, unlike El Dorado, this one actually exists and won't lead to a treason trial. This is a merchant royal shipwreck somewhere off the coast of Cornwall. It's never been found. Whoever can get their hands on it is going to get their hands on more gold than Long John Silver, we're told. There have been previous attempts to find this 400-year-old ship, but a new company thinks they are the people for the job. This is a former commercial fisherman and diver, is at the head of a team of 11 called a company called Multi-Beam Services, and they are on the hunt. He's going to spend all of 2024 looking for the wreck. He's going to cover 200 square miles as an area in the English Channel. Of course, any find, because of the treasure discovered, it's not going to be a case that he gets to keep it. It has to be disclosed and dealt with properly. The individual who's in charge of this company says that the lure for him lies in finding the answers, with any precious cargo set to become heritage artifacts. They've got new technology that could help to solve this mystery. The search is, though, going to be difficult, he says. He said it's not straightforward. If it was straightforward, it would have been done. Fair enough. This wreck went down on September the 23rd, 1641, after stopping off in the Spanish port of Cadiz. In Cadiz, it was repaired to take on more cargo on its way back from Mexico and the Caribbean. It was carrying payment for 30,000 soldiers based at Flanders. It also had treasures from the, in quotes, New World, 400 bars of Mexican silver, 500,000 pieces of 8. A report about the wreck from 1641 details that it was carrying 300,000 in ready Bologna and £100,000 in gold and as much value in jewels. So all of this, there is no agreement on how much might be on board and how much it might be worth. At the very lowest, though, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of pounds. The issue is that if this wreck is found, it might not be a visible boat anymore. It's made of wood. It's very possible it would have rotted away. So you might see metal finds like cannons and anchors and the treasure itself, as long as it hasn't already been found, taken, and not declared. Or indeed scattered by currents or whatever else. it could be, as he said, a needle in a haystack. This is a very large area to search. However, they have got this new equipment. They're going to base themselves in the Isles of Scilly, and if they find it, this is, Nigel says, it's not going to be a story of marine archaeologists buying a Lamborghini, but if there really is £4 billion on board, no doubt he'll at least get a generous finder's fee. So we'll see. If there are any updates on this, I will let you know. Shells from Captain Cook's final voyage were rescued from a dumpster. In the 1980s, a rare trove of shells, some of which had been collected on an 18th century voyage, were tossed into a dumpster at Newcastle University during an office clean-out. However, a lecturer rescued the shells before they could be taken to landfill. 40 years later, his descendants had donated the shells to English Heritage. This collection is, quote, a remarkable record of Britain's role in global trade and its colonial reach in the late 18th century. It contains over 200 specimens, including an extinct species and several believed to have been sent back from Captain James Cook's ill-fated third voyage. So during his expedition, one of Cook's crew members was a man called George Dixon. He served as the captain's armourer. He was collecting pieces of the natural world for an eager connoisseur at home, apparently, and he dispatched several seashells to the collector called Bridget Atkinson back in England. She was born in 1732, had a lifelong passion for shells, and despite never leaving Britain, she amassed a collection of 12,000 specimens from all over the world, thanks to a network of far-flung family and friends who sent her their finds. She is described as a remarkable woman with a real curiosity about the natural world. Tom White, who is curator at the Natural History Museum here in London, said that Atkinson is one of the earliest women to possess such an inventory. Today, her specimens carry great ecological significance. She's got a Distorsio cancellina, which is a sea snail that's now extinct. After her death in 1814, her grandson inherited the collection, and most of the shells were sold with his estate in 1930. Hundreds went to the college that became Newcastle University, where they were then discarded in the 80s. Then this researcher finds them, and they remained in their family home for 35 years. But after the death of their mother, they found the shells were part of the Clayton collection. This collection has gone on view at Chester's Roman Fort and Museum in Northumberland, England. So, and this display is also going to examine Atkinson's unsung legacies. If you're in Chester's Roman Fort Museum in Northumberland, and you get a chance to have a look at this, let us know what you think of it. Maybe that's the new thing. In addition to getting your metal detectors out and detectoring in a responsible and legal fashion, maybe we should just pootle around out the back of various universities and museums, and every now and again, just hop, skip, and a jump into a dumpster. Make sure they aren't getting rid of any of the Parthenon marbles. For example. In Hampshire, 18th century stained glass has been returned to a Gothic tomb. This is some of the rarest surviving stained glass in Britain, and it's been refitted at its Gothic tomb. The National Trust has returned the artwork to the Vine in Basingstoke, Hampshire, after it was removed from for conservation. The charity believes, Scarlett, Not sure a Parthenon marble. Hang on. Not sure a Parthenon marble fit in a dumpster. Depends on the size of the dumpster and the section of the Parthenon marbles. Yes. And another good point. Wheezy Squeeze book talks about when people know what you collect, it's important. Collect Authors backs it up. If you are a collector of things, stamps, coins, whatever else, make sure that somebody in your family understands their significance and why you're doing it. So it was moved for conservation. The charity National Trust has talked about how the change in the climate has increased weathering on the glass. This glass is 250 years old. It was designed by craftsman John Rowell, and it's now been covered with a protective glazing in order to conserve it. A spokesman from the National Trust said, quote, originally a plumber, which actually kind of makes sense in terms of like the welding skills that would be required to create pipe joints. I think that's fairly connected to making the sorts of joins that will hold stained glass together. He's a self-taught glass maker, and although accomplished, his paint was not durable enough to have withstood the test of time, and it would vanish from the glass. So very little of his work remains. Recently, climate change has exacerbated the fragile condition of the window, causing the painted detail to flake, the leadwork to warp and leak, and cycles of condensation to eat away at the surface of the glass. This window depicts the Adoration of the Shepherds, and it's after Van Dyck. It's considered to be the most important surviving example of Rowell's work. It's one of two stained glass panels in the tomb chamber to receive this protective glazing. The second, which depicts the same scene, was made by Rowell's great rival, another prominent glassmaker, William Price. The curator at the Vine, Dominic Shembury, said it's wonderful to see these two beautiful windows back in their rightful place, looking so clean and free of mould. This ostentatiously designed tomb chamber, which remains empty, was created as a family mausoleum by John Shute in the 1770s. The glazing work was carried out by specialist conservators Hollywell Glass of Wells, Somerset. And it does look, from what you can see there, it does look absolutely fabulous. So that's at the Vine. Sandy, thank you very much for the super chat. Well, I'm very pleased that you're enjoying the content. As you say, thank you for all your hard work and sharing your passion for history with us. Well, thank you all for turning up and watching. Thank you for those who share your news stories with me. Thank you for those who get in the live chat and comment. Thank you for those who watch afterwards and put comments in. I am really proud of this community. I'm really happy here. And I said this before, you know, I started this channel before the pandemic, but it really grew during the pandemic. And when that was first happening, what nobody knew until the September is that I was pregnant with my baby, who is now 3. And it was a very lonely, scary place to have lost my work because I was a freelancer in a job that required talking to people face to face in heritage settings. So there was no work. We were trying to get a mortgage. We were having a baby, and everything felt very scary. And this community became a real lifeline of normalcy in the most abnormal thing that we've all lived through. And I will be forever grateful for that. So thank you all very much. And I'm going to stop there before I start crying because I'm tired and emotional. We've got an appeal for clues here. This painting it's known as the Black Boy Portrait. This is a 200-year mystery. Painted in 1844. It's a black child in torn clothing. The artist is William Lindsay Windus, who lived at the Monument Hotel in central Liverpool at the time of this painting. However, little is known about who this boy is, and just I can't help but feel like his eyes look sad. Like it looks like he's about to cry to me. So experts want to find out who this boy was. The International Slavery Museum at Liverpool said that the only clues thus far come from a listing catalogue that was written in 1891. That listing catalogue states that this boy was a stowaway looking to escape being enslaved in the United States, that he bumps into the artist Windus in the hotel. The catalogue goes on to claim that Windus takes pity on the boy and employs him to run errands. However, then the listing goes on and says that a passing sailor spotted the painting in a shop where it had been sent for framing and realised the child was his missing relative. The story then goes that he was reunited with his parents, travelled abroad, although it's unclear whether this anecdote is in fact what happened. Kate Haselden, who researched the painting for the museum, said that she believed the boy's story was, quote, integral to the history of Liverpool. She went on, I think it would be an incredible thing not only to reunite his name with that portrait, but also give him the justice he deserves in being a named subject, which I think would be fantastic. The painting was found in a farmhouse above a fireplace covered with smoke before it was passed to the Walker Art Gallery and then to the International Slavery Museum. Miss Haselden said she's been able to track down the descendants of Windus, the artist, but they did not have any documents about the identity of the boy. She says, everyone has a name and a story. His story doesn't stop when he was painted by the artist. It would be incredible to know where he went after this, what his life became afterwards. I don't know how one would have information about this portrait or how one might find it, but I think it is possibly the case that it's part of somebody's family lore, that it's part of a story that gets told, reminisced about, that there is somebody out there or some people out there who are in some way related to this boy, and it's part of their story. I hope and I think. So if that's you, or maybe just share this story out and about, and the more people it reaches, the more chance it is that somebody goes, I recognize that picture. I've been told about that picture. That's part of my family lore. Then I think we can potentially get this good lady researcher the information that she needs. Thank you for all the kind words about watching the channel. And yes. Thank you for being my pals. Yeah, I hope things turned out all right for him. He does look like a little baby. And if he was really a stowaway, perhaps traveling on his own, you know, it's one of those timeless stories that one can scarcely imagine, and I hope I never have to, how dangerous your homeland must be, or the place you are must be, that you would willingly put your most prized thing in the world, your child, onto the unforgiving seas. That the sea, the ocean, is safer than the land you are on, tells you everything you need to know. Everything you need to know. And when people disregard that, it makes me wild. I can't understand it. A rare brooch that featured on the Antiques Roadshow has sold for £9,500. This is, despite looking almost medievally, do you know what it reminds me of? When I saw this, I thought it was a film prop I thought, and maybe you'll jump along with me. Anybody who's seen Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, when Kevin Costner is at that grave and he squeezes that thing and makes his hand bleed, this reminded me of that. Maybe I've conflated things. I don't know. So what this is, it was bought in 1988 by an art historian called Flora Steele. Then in 2023, she watched a video by the jewellery expert Geoffrey Munn. Munn then featured it on the Antiques Roadshow's 2023 Christmas special. It was then auctioned in Market Harborough in Leicestershire on Tuesday. This is a creation of the Gothic revival architect and designer William Burgess. So when she figured out what it was, she contacted the auctioneer Gildings, who then confirmed its origins. This brooch is one of a set of 6 made as a bridesmaid gift for the wedding, the 1864 wedding of Burgess's friend John Gibson to Caroline Bendish, who is the great niece of Admiral Horatio Lord Nelson. Brian says, man alive, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves really made an impression on you. Look, right. Real talk. That along with The Princess Bride, there were weapons in that I enjoyed. I like a sword. I've always liked a sword. Even from being a very little girl, I've always liked a sword. On top of that, I was in love with Bryan Adams. I'm going to say it. That music video, everything I do. Also, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves had treehouse forts. A fort of tree houses. It was really cool. I mean, the burning of them was not cool, spoiler alert, but I loved it. And also, Rickman, I'm going to cut your heart out with a spoon. Why? It's blunt, you idiot. It will hurt more. Fabulous. Delicious. I loved every moment of it. The whole thing, gorgeous. And then Bryan Adams, Everything I Do It For You, the music video, I loved it. I loved everything about it. Loved it. And I mean, when did it come out? When did Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves come out? I mean, I was probably, I think I was barely pubescent when it happened. And it awoke something in me. I love Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman is my favourite. 92. Okay. Well, if it was 92, then I would have been 7. So my husband's just texting me going, Disney's Robin Hood. I had a crush on the fox. Robin Hood Men in Tights, which has got the Dread Pirate Roberts in it. Carrie Yules. And then Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. It's a condition. It's a sickness. It's a through line. Oh dear. And Call Off Christmas. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, in my heart, Robin Hood will always be a fox. And Robin Hood Fox is a fox. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, right. She wore the brooch for about 5 years on the green velvet lapel of a favourite jacket. I bet that looked kind of cool, actually. When both the coat and the brooch were out of fashion, it remained in my London wardrobe. Oh, hello. Your London wardrobe, was it, babe? All right. And for another 20 years until my daughter-in-law found it and started wearing it. When she saw the TV clip, she couldn't believe it. She was stunned. And then she sold it for a nice little chunk of change. The Princess Bride is perfection in film form. I would no notes. I would take no notes on that. It is, first of all, Mandy Patinkin, God among men. The sword fight between Carrie Yules and Mandy Patinkin is one of the finest pieces of fight choreography in film. It is both, there is a connection to real fencing style, and there is also an incredible theatricality. It just strikes the most delicious notes. It's just gorgeous. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And you've got Andre the Giant, as you rightly say, Julesy, and just every part of it. That was a film that came out when I was little, because we had it on VHS at my Nana and Papa's house. And I remember when I used to do sleepovers at Nana and Papa's house, I'd be wearing my nightie, eating Heinz beans and sausages out of a bowl. And because I was a very hyperactive child, I wouldn't sit still to eat. So I'd be walking around the coffee table in the living room, eating my beans and sausages, watching The Princess Bride, and just loving it. So good. Marriage. True love. Loved it. In fact, at mine and Jamie's wedding, we had a table that was the Wesley and Buttercup table, because we picked iconic film characters to be our table names. Okay, so Sutton Hoo, there's a replica boat build going on. Hang on, is his surname pronounced Ellis? I thought it was Carrie Yules. Oh. Well, if it's Ellis, 'tis all good. He's a very sexy pirate. That, whether he's Wesley or the pirate, that he has got the most delectable curtains. That was very popular when I was young. And Peter Cook, chef's kiss. Yeah, my husband just said that actually our so he pointed out that our Buttercup and Wesley table was the top table, so the one that me and my husband sat on. That's because I love Princess Bride so much, and it was all iconic characters. So there's debates apparently about how it's pronounced. Okay, so apparently he pronounces himself in interviews. How? Do it phonetically. I'll share it. Okay, so in the Sutton Hoo replica boat is apparently going to take at least 3 oak trees to build. Volunteers are recreating. Okay, so Suzanne said, I have just heard him pronouncing himself in interviews, Yules. So Carrie Yules. Carrie Elwes. Those are different pronunciations. I tell you what, friends, Google it yourself. I'm confused. I'm confused. So this is volunteers. They are recreating this Anglo-Saxon burial ship found at Sutton Hoo, and they are asking for people who can help them source 3 oak trees. Oh, excuse me. Let me look under my armpit for my spare oak trees that I've got. This is an 88-foot or 27-meter reconstruction of the ship. Apparently, about a dozen oak trees have been used so far. They just need the last 3. Julesy, if he were here right now, I probably wouldn't be asking about his surname, babe. I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. Just 3 oak trees left. So they've got a dozen. They've used a dozen so far, 3 to go. And if they can get the trees, then apparently they'll be finished and afloat. So they're going to sail this. Good luck to them. The ship's backbone, as it's called, the keel, stern, and stern post have been built, and they've been attaching planks with rivets using traditional methods. We're told that another 3 good large trees will complete the planking. So a dozen oak trees have been donated to this £1.5 million project. The project itself paid for felling and delivery costs. They need to be, so they had access to much larger trees at the time. So these trees need to be 1.2 meters or 4 feet at chest height, and the planks need to be 6 meters between 6 and 10 meters, or 19 foot to 32 foot long. They have to be clear of branches and free from knots or other defects, because you aren't going to want that popping out and you springing a leak. So the felling season ends, and they hope they're going to have the trees before the felling season ends, which is the next few weeks. They have replaced the oak trees used in a 20-to-1 ratio. They've just planted 400 saplings. They've been planted on 5 acres that itself was donated by Bill Main, and underplanted with 1,600 shrub and tree species by the Woodland Trust. So this sounds like a really great project, because not only is it volunteer archaeologists doing something really, volunteer boat builders and archaeologists doing something really cool, but they're also replenishing woodland at a 20-to-1 ratio. Fabulous. Thank you so much for the super chat, Teresa. That's incredibly kind and generous of you. Thank you very, very much indeed. Dr. Beckenham, we're talking about Lady Jane here. Oh, is that what it's called? Is that what the film's called, with Helena Bonham Carter? And Kerry, however it's pronounced, surname. I can look into that. It's I think it's a really interesting presentation of these 2 characters and their relationship. I can explore it. I will explore it. An unseen sketch by the Irish artist John Lavery from 1931 has sold at auction in the UK. This is a sketch of the hearing of the appeal of Sir Roger Casement. That's a figure that potentially needs a video, I think. It sold for £155,200, which is the equivalent of €181,832. It was estimated that it was going to go for between £15,000 to £25,000, or €17,500 to €29,000. The artist was a Belfast native, and this is the original sketch of the controversial treason trial of the Irish nationalist Roger Casement. This painting, the hearing, was proposed by the presiding judge, Charles Darling, 1st Baron Darling. He commissioned this Irish painter to capture the court proceedings. He knew Lavery well as he'd already done portraits of the judge's family. This painting was produced in the studio, completed in 1931, and it remained there until the artist's death, when he left it to the nation. Another painting at the auction by Lavery was A Grey Day. This oil on canvas sold for £32,700 against an estimate of £10,000 to £15,000. So there is also a touring exhibition of his work called Lavery on Location that's been organised by the National Gallery of Ireland, and it's currently on show at the Ulster Museum in Belfast. So check that out. There has been a heist. Gold statues and jewellery have been stolen in a €1 million heist at a museum by Lake Garda. These are statues and jewellery made by the Italian sculptor Umberto Mastrioni. They have been stolen from an exhibition in northern Italy. 20 gold statues, 30 pieces of jewellery, all crafted between the 1950s and the 1990s. They have been on display since December. On Thursday morning, so when this article was written, so a day before the show was due to close, they found the exhibition space had been emptied of the works. Along with the statues, that includes rings, bracelets, pins, brooches, all made using the golden stream melding technique. All but one of the pieces, which they think was dropped, has gone. So basically, they lost one piece because it got dropped. So that's the piece that has been recovered. Italian police are investigating the robbery, but so far, as far as the news goes, no developments have occurred. It said the thieves entered the museum through a service door and deactivated the alarm. It's been referred to, unsurprisingly, as a serious event. It's been called a cowardly gesture. The hope is the work will be found as soon as possible and those responsible brought to justice. I mean, how did they get in and disable the alarm and then get out without anybody realising until they came to open the exhibition space the following day? How did they? That would be, I think, the way logic might lean. But of course, allegedly. This is the issue with this sort of thing, the level of gold involved, and also how recognisable these are going to be. And essentially, in their current form, to all but, if this was a theft to hire, these things are being sought out by a specific individual who's hired these people to get them, then they're going to be intact. Otherwise, if they are trying to sell these, they are too hot to handle. Thus, logically, if it's not been stolen to order, the risk is these are going to be melted down. That's the risk. As and when updates appear, I will, of course, let you know. My husband has said on the Carrie Hughes thing, apparently his family name was Carey Hughes. It was his family name, and it's continued to be for a branch of his family. So no L. It used to be Hughes, like a lady sheep. Interessante. The stolen ruby slippers from the Wizard of Oz have gone to auction. They were stolen from a display case in Minnesota. They have since been reclaimed. This is one we talked about, where allegedly there was the thief thought it had real rubies and was very disappointed to find that they in fact weren't real rubies. 5 pairs of slippers that were made for the film are believed to have survived, with this being the highest quality pair. This was the one used for the close-up shots, including when Dorothy's clicking her heels to return home to Kansas. Shaw was himself a child actor working for MGM, and he purchased them from a Hollywood costumier. After a 13-year search for the stolen shoes, they were recovered in 2018. And in 2023, a Minnesota man was indicted and pled guilty. He said that it was basically found that he'd never seen the Wizard of Oz, and he'd stolen them believing they were made with real rubies that he could sell on the black market. Shaw was reunited with his slippers in a private ceremony, saying, "It's like welcoming back an old friend I haven't seen in years." He's now consigned the slippers to the Dallas-based Heritage Auction that's going to auction them in December after they've been on an international tour. They're going to be on display in LA, New York, London, and Tokyo before arriving back in the US for auction. As and when these exhibitions and their location is made public, I will, of course, include it in the exhibition information. So the quote says, the auction house executive VP says, "You cannot overstate the importance of Dorothy's ruby slippers. They are the most important prop in Hollywood history." I mean, they've certainly got to be up there, haven't they? This is a lovely story about a lady who, after her retirement, became essentially an amateur fossil hunter. She did a degree in natural scientists in 1965. She taught biology in Ghana. This is a really great, just a bio of her. So I do check it out. So she retired at 60 and started fossiling, but didn't plan to get serious about it. She Weymouth and the Jurassic Coast. In the time since between 60 and being nearly 80, she's found more than 2,000 fossils and has dedicated 20 years of her life to paleontological research. And some of the finds that she's found are just incredible. She does say that her collecting has dropped off somewhat because she is losing her eyesight. However, she has got a mentee who she's passing her knowledge on to. He apparently found a pterosaur jaw a month ago, which was a very significant and rare find. So far, no academic research has been done on the fossils. She's got 350 pieces of pterosaur, these flying reptiles. There are PhD students who are coming to look over the fossils. They came in 2012. And she donated her crocodile teeth to them. So she says, "I want to inspire people, not because I want to be a saint, but because I wish to pass on this knowledge on. When I die, everything I spent 20 years learning will go unless I pass this on with enthusiasm. It's a major national site, the Jurassic Coast, and I want to be assured that fossil collectors that go there understand the value of what they're finding. Otherwise, fossils of great significance will be lost, and they shouldn't be. I've just co-authored a book about my work. My record keeping is meticulous, another characteristic you need. I've changed a large upstairs bedroom into a fossil study, and they're all in there. It's like a mini museum." So, do the photo shoot for this article when I'm nearly 80 is cause for a bloody large glass of champagne. It's ridiculous, but I like it. It's an example of women at work, not dressed up in high heels. It's an alternative view, which I'm very keen on. I'm advocating for women of all ages in science. What immense fun I've had. It's fun, for goodness sake. So yes, do check out that entire article, because it's really heartwarming and I think really cool as well. I mean, yes, there's definitely got to be. I think anybody who is into marine archaeology, or the kind of study of now extinct marine reptiles and fossils around the Jurassic Coast, I think male or female, you have to be at least partially inspired by Mary Anning, I think. This is a weird one. This is my last piece of new news. A World War II plane propeller has been found wrapped in potato sacks in a peat bog, and investigations have now been sparked. It was found by a contractor called Stuart Lammy. He was worried, I think perhaps unsurprisingly, when he saw the sacks, that he had found human remains during a peatland restoration. I'm sure he was very relieved that it was not in fact human remains. The National Trust for Scotland has now launched a probe into where this came from. There had been recorded 6 Second World War plane crashes on land it cares for in Arran. These are now protected sites. Aircraft that crashed in that particular area during the conflict, but this new discovery falls outside of the 2 previously known sites. They think this might have come from a B-17 Flying Fortress or a B-24 Liberator. I'm assuming that B stands for Boeing. Correct me if I'm wrong. So they're now working with relevant military organisations, and further work is going to be carried out. They are intrigued by the discovery of this propeller blade. They talk about there being these previous crash sites. On closer inspection, they find it's been wrapped and tied in a potato sack, which, of course, adds to the intrigue. And they find that it's some distance from the spread of the wreckage of the former crash site. Is it something that's been gathered during the cleanup? In which case, why is it put in potato sacks and buried? So they are determined to get to the bottom of it. Experts have been called in to try and identify this propeller. The crash site closest to where this blade was found is that of a B-24 Liberator, one that came down on the 24th of August, 1943, losing all of the 11 crew and passengers. The senior ranger at the NTS on Arran said, quote, "I think our contractor was shocked when he saw the end of a potato sack sticking out of the bog, as his first thought was it could be human remains. With careful excavation, the wrapped propeller was revealed with a rope still tied around it. And we suspect someone might have been dragging the propeller down the hill, when it sunk deep into the peat, not to be recovered until now. So for some reason, I suppose as a souvenir, people are weird, right? Somebody's wrapped this propeller in potato sacks, dragged it down the hill, and then it's got stuck. Oh, hello. Balloons. Melissa. So B stands for bomber, F stands for fighter, C stands for cargo. Okay. So we don't know who might have manufactured. Anybody know who manufactured the B-24 Liberator? Or indeed, what was the other one they suggested it might have been? B-24 Liberator or the B-17 Flying Fortress. Anybody know who manufactured that? My paternal grandfather, who I never met, worked in aviation. He worked making and mending planes. So that is the new news. We are now going to move on to my one ding dong. I haven't got my bell with me, so let's go ding, 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 ding. Okay, Manda and Elverta have both given me Consolidated Aircraft of San Diego, California. Okay. Consolidated Aircraft. Right. So it's an American World War II plane. Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you very much. Consolidated Aircraft of San Diego. Thank you for the info. So it's ding dong time. We talked about the rules for being a metal detectorist. And this is another naughty. Don't buy coins off eBay and then plant them for fame. That's weird. Don't do that. Because if these finds were real, we're told it would have changed the known history of Wales. This special detective has been charged with one count of fraud by false representation, having claimed to have discovered these coins in a field in Herefordshire. On March 11, Hereford Magistrates Court heard that Michael Jones of Port Talbot planted 5 medieval coins in a field and claimed to have found them during a metal detecting rally at Oakcroft Farm in Titley in July 2021. Titley, lol. I'm a child. In fact, he had purchased these rare silver deniers off of eBay. If these were genuinely there, and they have, my husband just pointed out, so that was the consolidated one, the Liberator consolidated, but the B-17 Flying Fortress was apparently made by Boeing. So maybe it's a consolidated plane, or maybe it's a Boeing plane. If these coins had genuinely been uncovered where they were on this farm, it would have changed the known history of Herefordshire and the Welsh borders. We're told they are very rare and very important, especially if they could be linked to the Knights Templar. Such coins had never been found in the region before. A fellow metal detectorist at the rally told him that the Jones had led him to a section of the field. When it happened, he said, "I was ecstatic, but Mike wasn't really shocked." He appeared in the Magistrates Court, having first entered a plea of not guilty at an earlier hearing in July 2023. In court, he explained that he'd faked the fine, quote, "for fame and bravado that goes with it. It was stupid, I know. It was a feel-good thing. I wanted to make myself look good. It was a moment of insanity." It was determined that he did act deceptively, but there was no proof he had any intention of making money from the discovery, and so the charge of fraud was dismissed. "You did make false representations, but the Crown could not prove financial gain. Therefore, we find you not guilty," the chairman of the Magistrates Court determined. An archaeological source characterised the verdict as disappointing, adding that the council paid for an excavation of the find site to see if there were other coins there. His claim of a discovery has cost money in investigations and court time. So maybe there should be a fine for that, I think. That's our ding dong. We are now moving on to our events and exhibitions section. So first up, we have got an update from a visit to the Ramesses Gold of the Pharaoh exhibition. So a lovely viewer, I'm not sure if you said I could say your name, so I won't. A lovely viewer emailed me, having been to the exhibition, and has kindly given us her feedback of it. She let us know that there were no human mummified remains on display. There were, however, some mummified cats, and there on a screen there was a image of Ramesses II's face from his mummified remains that they used to show how they did a reconstruction. She really enjoyed the exhibition, and the people she went with, that it was a really good job of overviewing Ramesses' life. So yes, so it sounds to me like it may, if this is the sort of thing you're interested in, very good to know that there's no human remains on display. But yes, they did love a mummified cat. They did love a mummified cat. They were showing off objects from earlier and later periods that would have been similar to what Ramesses would have used. So this exhibition is going to be going on now. It's been extended. It's going on to May the 19th in Sydney, Australia. So you have a little bit more time to go and check it out. And it sounds like it's a safe one to have a look at. If you are in and around London, maybe near Barking in the UK, then the Women's Museum in Barking, not to be confused with the East End Women's Museum that was also set to open in Barking. This is a different museum. They've got an exhibition called An Idea of a Life. This is the first exhibition for the Women's Museum in Barking. This is telling the everyday histories of the women who lived in Barking Abbey, which opened or was founded in around 666. Yes, 666 AD. And it remained opened until the early 16th century, when, of course, it was subject to or damaged by Henry VIII's Reformation. So this is open, and the exhibition space is open Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays between 11 and 5 p.m. So that's really worth checking out. It looks really cool. Perhaps you are going to be in Malaga in Spain, in which case, mayhap you want to check out the Pablo Picasso Structures of Invention exhibition at the Picasso Museum in Spain. It does look fabulous. And that is going to be, it's going to be open until the 21st of March 2027. So if you've not planned your trip yet, you've still got a few years to go. It's going to be open for a while. Last, but by no means least, in Dorset in the UK, we have got the Gilded Age of the American Heiress exhibition at Mapperton House in Dorset. This is a collection of 10,000 previously unseen diaries, letters, and journals exchanged between 1888 and 1951 between the 9th Countess of Sandwich, Elverta Montague, and to her family and to the peerage at large. These are said to be the largest unpublished collection of correspondence from that period. Through this exhibition, they're going to look into Elverta's formative years in America, exploring her upbringing in Chicago and New York, the origins and significance of her inheritance, and then the courtship between her and the future 9th Earl of Sandwich, George Montague, leading to their marriage in 1905 in London. Finally, it culminates with her relocation to Hitchinbrook House in 1916 as the new Countess. And we also have letters that she wrote detailing the aftermath of the First World War as she travelled through France and Belgium. So this looks like a really fascinating glimpse that's going to be open until the 30th of August, 2024. And, Melissa says they have a YouTube channel called Mapperton. So for more information, if you can't get to Dorset, although I do recommend Dorset, because I have family there and it's a lovely part of the world. And also, Weymouth, Jurassic Coast, spot of fossil hunting, bit of American Heiress, spot of fossil hunting, have some afternoon tea, have a scone, get into a fight. You're in Dorset, get into a fight with a Cornish person about what goes on first, cream or jam. It's the cream, but okay, it's cream then jam. So there we go. That is all I have for you this week. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you all so much for spending this time with me. I think we had some great items this time around, as we always do. There were some really interesting artifacts that were found, some naughty people being naughty, and hopefully we'll have more fun things to discuss in a couple of weeks when we're going to be doing another History News. So once again, thank you to everybody who has sent me in articles. Thank you to everybody who has taken the time to watch this live. Thank you to everybody who is watching us on the playback. If you enjoy this sort of a thing, do make sure you are subscribed to the channel and that you've also hit the bell icon, because that way YouTube claims they will tell you when I am next going live. By the bell, when you hit the bell icon, it will allow you to select all. Try that. If all else fails, hop over to my website, www.katrinamarchant.com, and then if you go onto the contact page and put your email in the little box on the contact page, that will add you to my mailing list. And then I can send you out an email once a week with the links you're going to need for the coming days. So that might be helpful. It might be a workaround for YouTube's shenanigans. Please do like this one, share, tell your pals about it. It's a good time. I hope you think so too. And I think that's about it. So we will be having, of course, a premiere on Friday. I hope that many of you can join that chat and we can have a discussion about what we are talking about in that video. Until Friday, I hope you're going to have a great rest of your Monday, or indeed, if you're in Australia, a great Tuesday. For that matter, a wonderful rest of your week as we hurtle towards Easter. So yes, Friday's video will, of course, be on Good Friday for those of you who celebrate. In the meantime, have a wonderful time. I look forward to speaking to as many of you as possible in my next video. But for now, do take care of yourselves, and it's goodbye from me.